Hello?
Hi, is this Dennis?
Yeah.
Hi, Dennis. This is Terry and Tiffany with Cult Radio. I wanted to let you know right away we're on the air. So.
Why, did you think I was going to come on shouting profanity? What do you think? What kind of guy do you think I am at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Well, let me do the official introduction before we get started. Ladies and gentlemen, We're very excited to welcome our featured guest for this evening. Someone who started out, and you may remember him as the voice of Dr. Hook, and now he's doing his solo career, and he has more aspirations than just being on the cover of the Rolling Stone. The one and only Dennis Locorriere. Welcome to the show, Dennis.
Thanks. How are you? Is everybody all right?
Well,
yeah,
Dennis.
Where does this go? Everybody, I guess it's the internet, so anywhere in the world can be listening to this, right?
We actually had people in Iraq.
Really?
Yeah, no lie.
Yeah.
Well, how you doing,
good.
man?
Hey, so, I'm probably not the only one who's, like, weird and up late. So that's good. That's good.
No, wait, I have to know, did you go to bed and then get back up, or did you just stay up?
No. I have really weird sleeping habits. I sleep very little. My mother, when I was a little kid, my mother used to, or when I was a teenager, if I was in bed at 10 o'clock, my mother used to tell me anybody who's still asleep at 10 o'clock in the morning is a bum. And I used to say, well, what if you didn't go to bed till 6? And then I realized that was not helping my case, so. But, so I have this thing that no matter what time I go to bed, I'm up a couple of hours later. I like the middle of the night. I love the middle of the night. I think I developed that when I was on the road with Hook, because the only time I was really on my own was when I got back to the hotel and shut the door,
I don't know, maybe it's...
so I kind of cultivated those hours, and I like them.
Maybe it's because you're a songwriter, too, because everybody always gets the impression that musicians, don't get up early.
Oh, I know. They really do. People, when you're on the road, no matter what time you get to bed, you're up and you're trying to get to the next place, Mm-hmm. There is a whole lot of mythology when people, it's the hotel thing. It's the hotel. The trap people fall into right away is, hotel, he doesn't even have to make his own bed. I don't do that at home either. I just leave it unmade, you know what I mean? So, what I like about hotels, too, when they think they should change your sheets every day. It's like, what the hell do you think I'm doing in here?
Well, I certainly
hope... I
don't
change my sheets every day when I'm home.
I certainly hope that over there in the UK you don't have the problems we have, because we have bed bugs.
No, really? I was in America for the first 200 years of my life, so, so I remember it all, but I never had bed bugs. I think the band rented a bus from another group one time, and some of us got crab lice from the bus. And that's very unromantic, You know what I mean? If you want to say you have stuff like that, you at least want to have gotten them from some kind of conquest instead of I sat on a bad seat. You know what I mean? It's a whole different thing.
Wow, this tour, Dennis, that you're doing, your solo tour, you're literally performing like nearly every night. I don't think you were performing that much with Dr. Hook, were you?
Yeah. The international thing with Hook, and before all the kind of communication you have now. When Hook first went on the road, there weren't even really videos. MTV. And the first year MTV happened was the year we released our last single. So that's how connected we were to the video generation, And we noticed when we traveled abroad, like people in Australia and the UK, they started to show videos a whole lot more than they did in America. I guess because they had, aspects of non-commercial television where they could do that. In Australia, if they were showing a 2-hour movie, if they had 2 hours slotted for a movie and it was an hour and 50 minutes, they'd play 10 minutes of music videos. And we thought, oh, how cool, you know, but they didn't really have that outlet in America. And so we would just travel and travel and travel, and you know, it was 300 days on the road, probably about 260 shows. And by the time you got to the other side of the world, somebody on the opposite side of the world would be saying, you know, they're forgetting about you over here. And so you'd start all over again. And it was a lot of work. You know, I got into this business because I didn't really want to ever have a job, and I've never worked so hard in my life trying not to have a job.
Well, it was like I saw somebody else, I believe she was from over there where you are now, that was interviewing you and said, well, why don't you retire and just live on a farm, because you obviously are, you know, fairly well set and stuff, but you just want to work.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. I don't mean to burst anybody's bubble, but, you know, when I was with Dr. Hook, we had 7 guys in the band. We had 5 guys in a perpetual road crew. We traveled all the time, which wasn't cheap. You know, and we didn't, none of us came out of that band rich. You know, I'm a working guy now. I tour, I work. I mean, you know, it's not like I sit home and start a salmon hatchery or anything like that, you know. I work. And it's a good damn thing that I like it, you know, because if there's anything I would resent at this point in my life, it, you know, would be having to do something I didn't want to do. Right. Which is why I kind of concentrate a lot on the solo thing. You know, there's a real thing about the Dr. Hook era with me, and people, I think, sometimes in the short form get the idea that I don't respect those days or don't revere those days, and I do. But those days are half my life ago. Mm-hmm. And you know, and I've used the analogy before, but it's like, you know, remember, like a year ago, you guys got in touch with me and said, do you want to do this? And what was my first question back to you? Are we only going to talk about Dr. Hook? You know, and that wasn't because it was going to be 3 o'clock in the morning, because I was going to be up anyway, you know. It's just because I don't ever mind talking about Dr. Hook. I mean, that's where it all started. But the analogy I've always used is it's like talking about the touchdown you made in high school right. for the rest of your life.
Definitely.
You know, did you ever have a friend that you grew up with and you really like the person, but you start to notice that every time you talk to each other, you only talk about the past?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that friend.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want to be that guy. I want to be, you know, and so, hey, what are you doing now? Oh, nothing, but you remember the thing I did when I was 8, you know? It's not who I am, so it's not the guy I want to represent. And, you know, in this day of this economy and touring and stuff, you try to get a promoter. Try to see, I've been living here in the UK for about the last 10 or 11 years, mm-hmm. and I use the voice of Dr. Hook, you know, just as a calling card, you know, in billing and stuff, so people know from whence I came, you know what I mean? But here in the UK, I tour all the time, and I don't use that anymore. I just use my name. Unless I'm going to go out and do a kind of greatest hits tour, which I do once every 5 years or something like that, you know, just to remind everybody that I still have, you know, because you know what happens, people grow up and they go, oh yeah, is that guy still alive? Let's go see him. You know, and they drag their kids with them too. So.
Well, it can't be any worse than if they really got confused and was like, Dennis, where's your pirate patch?
Oh, no kidding. Let me tell you something, man. I mean, we know we call the band Dr. Hook, so it's our fault, you know. But, you know, yeah, the fellow Ray Sawyer had the eye patch. He still has the eye patch. He's out there somewhere being Dr. Hook, you know, probably right now as we speak. And that's fine. That's fine. It's, you know, and like I said, when I do a tour, there's a lot of that stuff in there. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, I concentrate on a lot of the Hook stuff that maybe people didn't get to hear. You know, people that had the albums, and then I like to sing one of the album tracks. You know, where people, I never thought I'd get to hear him sing that, as opposed to, is he singing that again? You know, right. And because I feel like that about a lot of my favorite artists. I mean, I love Paul McCartney. I'm a big Beatles fan. I love Paul McCartney. I take a bullet for the guy. okay? But for me, he could leave the Let It Be and the Live and Let Die with the 4th of July explosions alone for a little while and sing one of those other million songs that I'd love to hear him sing. But the point is, stadiums.
Right.
So you got to blow something up.
Right.
You know
Well,
what I mean?
you're lucky, though, because at least you're not, Debbie Boone that's only got one record. Or Bobby Boris Pick was a friend of mine. He was like, I'm going to sing a medley of my hit.
I know. You know what happens? You know what happens to those artists when they only have the one hit? They resent them so much that they wind up in front of an audience who's actually waiting to hear it. They wind up introducing the song by saying something like, well, here's a song I'll be saddled with for the rest of my life, or, or here's something I'm sure I'll have to drag out for the rest of my life. And, you kind of have to understand that people want to hear some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But, these days, I'm not really, I'm going to be 64. I mean, I feel fine. I look okay. You know what I mean? At my age, even when things are going well, you wait for them not to be. You know what I mean? But everything is cool. And when I go out there, I'm just trying to let water seek its level, you know? I'm just trying to let an audience come. And if they've come to hear the Hook stuff, they're not disappointed. If they've come to hear exclusively the Hook stuff, then they leave hating me. Because they're songs that they didn't hear. But then again, I hope if they're really listening that they'll like some of the stuff from my solo albums. Because I like those albums. I don't put those things out just to check my pulse. I mean, I like those songs, and I like them to represent me. Now.
Well, in talking of...
And the thing that always amazes me is when people don't know your new stuff, but they can't stop talking to you about your old stuff. It always makes me wonder, well, if I took part in something 30 years ago that you still talk about, why won't you listen to something I did last week?
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, where is it you stop trusting me? You know what I mean? And then, but something, folks, then I stop and I realize, because, I'm up late, I don't, I think a lot. And I realize that it isn't about me. It's about them. And they don't really care what I'm doing at 64, because that means they're 50.
Or in my case, 56.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? And I'm not casting aspersions. I'm saying maybe they want to, because listen, man, I listen to the Beatles, I listen to Dylan. I mean, I'm on a Dylan jag right now, but, all the old, Blood on the Tracks and stuff, and, so I get it. Nostalgia definitely has its place. I mean, but see, I think the stuff I listen to when I listen to Dylan, that's not nostalgia. That's Dylan.
Exactly.
Right.
He's still saying the same thing to me right now that he said to me a long time ago.
So,
that's not me. I don't have to go put on my bell bottoms.
in knowing that you're a writer, and even though you're great on your own, and you have this kind of Dr. Hook ghost that's kind of haunting you in a way, is it kind of a love-hate thing, all according to what's going on at the time? Do you have that consciously in your mind when you're writing a song? Have you started a song and then threw it out because you were like, oh, that's too Dr. Hook?
No, not particularly. No, I mean, see, that's the catch-22 about having hits and being popular for something, is that you start off naturally, and then somebody goes, oh, I like that. And then all of a sudden, a couple of songs in, you're thinking, am I still doing that? Do I still sound like me? You start worrying about that, and all of a sudden, it's, I'll give you a small example. We used to play the Troubadour in L.A. all the time. And they'd give us like 4 or 5 nights. We played there all week, And it was great. It was just a great place to play. And I used to do this thing with the bass player. I used to take the bass from him. First, I used to play it around him. Actually, like pull him up to me with my arms around him and play a bass solo around him. And then I'd take the bass from him and continue on and play this bass solo. And one night, this girl, this very attractive young girl, came up to me and said, oh, you do this great thing when you're playing the bass. It's so sexy. And I said, please don't tell. And she continued. And every night I went on stage and I was doing that bass solo, every part of it, I was thinking, is this the part where I'm sexy? Is this the part she meant? And it sucked. It really sucked. I mean, it really ruined it for me. You know what I mean? I don't watch myself. My DVDs, the only thing I've ever learned by watching myself is don't.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree.
Really, because, you know, I did a play one time, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to freeze it anywhere. Maybe if I'm 90 and I'm sitting somewhere and people are going, "Great Grandpa, we're going to play this. Do you recognize him?" You know, and it's me. You know what I mean?
Now, Dennis, this play you did, it was written by Shel Silverstein, who also wrote for Hook a lot. How's your relationship? I mean, how'd your relationship? I know how it started, but I mean, how did it progress? Like after the band broke up?
Shel and I just were. You know, it was really funny. It was great for me because I was a young guy, and I was a Shel Silverstein fan anyway. And I remember seeing Shel standing on a street corner in New York City when I was just, I don't know, 17, 18, and wanting to go up and say something to him, because I had some of his early things, like Inside Folk Songs, and just some great albums, and I wanted to talk to him, and I couldn't bring myself, because he was very gruff. He had a very gruff exterior. He was a sweetheart, but he had a very gruff exterior. Maybe that was his defense thing, but he didn't look approachable, you know. And so I didn't say anything. And sometime within the next 6 months or a year, we were playing in a bar, and some guys came in, trying to make this short, some guys came in and said, "Hey, we got a guy, we'd love to hear you make a record." And, you know, we were a bar band. We weren't even sure what the hell that meant. I mean, for us anyway. And we went to some factory in New Jersey, and then to a studio, and cut a couple of songs, Mr. Tambourine Man and a Buck Owens song, and something. And the guy was he was a textile millionaire in Passaic, New Jersey. His family were in the textile business forever, and he wanted to be a record producer so badly that he had gold records around his office, which was at the factory. You know, gold records that he made, you know what I mean? That not that he won, that he just made, you know, had made and stuff. And he recorded us and didn't know what to do with us, and gave a tape to another guy who wound up being our producer, but at that point was the musical director of a Dustin Hoffman film called Who is Harry Kellerman, and Why is he saying those terrible things about me? And Shel Silverstein wrote the music. And we got a chance to be in it with Shel as his backup band, filmed at the Fillmore on Grateful Dead night. And the only, you know, on Grateful Dead night, when you're backstage at the Fillmore East on Grateful Dead night, the only thing people say to you is, "Don't eat anything." That's all you hear. "Don't eat those cookies." "What you didn't eat those cookies, did you?" You know, it's the only hospitality in the world you shouldn't partake of, you know. And but we did. We were in the movie with Shel, and that's how we met Shel. But you know, there was something about me that Shel took to early on, because he was giving me these songs to sing with Hook, like "I Can't Touch the Sun" and the Ballad of Lucy Jordan, and even Sylvia's Mother. I mean, Sylvia's Mother wasn't even going to be on our first album. Our first album, as far as we were concerned, it was finished, and we went out to California, and Shel played us a couple of songs, and one of them was Sylvia's Mother, and we loved it and begged Clive Davis at CBS Records, you know, to go into the studio one more time, and we cut Sylvia's Mother. But it's a great story. It's not just a song. It's not, you know, Crystal Blue Persuasion or Grooving in the Grass. It's a story where, you know, somebody's dying in Sylvia's Mother. You know what I mean? I know people always took it as a joke and a parody because it was so over the top, but it's a guy in a phone booth running out of money, which nobody understands anymore. That's like almost like saying it's a guy in a cave carving a, you know, you know. But it's a tragic story, as is Lucy Jordan, and lots of unrequited love in Shel's songs. "I Can't Touch the Sun," "The Things I Didn't Say." I mean, just and for some reason, I got them. I got them as an early, you know, as a young guy. I just got them. And maybe having not even lived those experiences fully yet. For some reason, I got the emotion in them, and I asked Shel years later when we were doing the play why he trusted, a punk like me with all those songs, and he said, because you were always an old soul. And I thought, isn't that cool? That's great.
Very cool.
Jeez. Because I kind of grew into those songs. I mean, we wrote one together called A Couple More Years that a lot of country artists recorded. I've got a couple more years on you, babe. And, I understand that song now better than I did when it was written. Right. So that's the good thing about those songs. And you know what I said to you a little while ago about when I listened to Bob Dylan, I don't feel like, it's nostalgia. Well, when I sing a song of Shel's like I Can't Touch the Sun or Lucy Jordan, I'm just retelling a great story. You know what I mean? There's no disco ball required. I tour alone with a couple of guitars because I have good songs to sing. You know what I mean? And people are hopefully not waiting for the saxophone solo that night. And so my relationship with Shel developed from there. And after Hook, I didn't see Shel because he's a very free spirit, and Shel's the kind of guy that you could be at a party with him, and you'd say, I'll be right back, and you'd see him in a year, And after Hook, we didn't see each other, and one day he just called me. And after Hook, I was kind of despondent, mostly because I did Hook from like 19 to 35 and had no idea. I knew I didn't want to just keep doing that. And I also knew that if I didn't let go of that, nothing else would happen.
Well, it has to be hard, too.
When I go back home, people wouldn't, I was home for a year, and people were still saying, oh, so you're in for a couple of days? And I was saying, no, I live here now. I have a phone number. So Hook was all-consuming,
right.
But after Hook, I was sort of like a retired sea captain. I was waiting for everything to start rocking, and it wasn't. And Shel called me and said, you want to make some music? And I went to see him, and we were going to do an album together. He passed away before that. But in that interim, while we were seeing each other, that play came up. Mm-hmm. And he thought of me, and it's funny, he called me and he said, there's this one-man show, it's Lincoln Center, David Mamet's doing a play, I'm doing a play. I'd really like you to do it. I don't really want to have to talk to any actors. Which I said, oh, that was cool. That's cool, I guess. You know what I mean? Because I didn't think he was going to give me his play to ruin at Lincoln Center. So
what I want to know is, of course, and maybe it's because of loving people like Shel Silverstein, you're also a poet. Did Shel get to read any of your poetry?
No. You know something? I realized much late in my life that I'd always drawn cartoons, always written poetry. Shel has books out that have won prizes for children's poetry and his cartoons. And I guess I always kind of put them away, not out of any sense of intimidation, but more because I didn't want, because I got originally, popular and famous for singing Shel songs. And to this day, people know me for singing Shel songs. And I guess I didn't want, and he does cartoons and poems just like Daddy. You know what I mean? And I guess I always felt like, well, Shel's the cartoonist in this family. And the way my book of poetry happened was, I'm always writing things, and I'll write stuff, 4 lines, 8 lines, and I'll really like it. And then I won't know where to go with it, and I'll put it away. And think, as a songwriter, well, someday I'll write a melody and a hook and another 2 verses, and I'll be able to show that to somebody. And one day it kind of hit me that maybe these things weren't unfinished songs. Maybe they were finished poems. Maybe the reason I couldn't finish them was because they were already finished.
Right.
And I didn't have an outlet for it. I wasn't about to go to my manager and say, John, try to get me a poetry deal, I mean, what the hell, I have a beret I'd like to start wearing. It was like very far from me, as part of my arsenal, if you will. So I started putting the poems on my blog space, on my website. Mm-hmm. And after, I don't know how many months of doing that, quite a few, probably near 2 years, I got an email from a poetry publishing house, here in the UK, and they said, "Oh, we've been reading your stuff. We love it. Would you like to put it out as a collection?"
Cool.
And that's the first time it actually hit me. Wow, a collection, far out. And then I said to him, sort of like, oh, when somebody says, "You can do it. We'd like you to do a tap dance," and say, "Good. I have a song I could sing too." I said to him, "I have these cartoons that I'd like to stick in there, and let me show you." And so we put, I don't know, close to 24 cartoons in there as well that are just little heads. I draw little heads. I still do it now. I did about 15 of them before while I'm watching TV. I start with the eyes. I draw a face. I really never know what the face is going to be while I'm drawing it. And then when it's done, I look at that face and I immediately write something that it's saying. Mm-hmm. What I think it's saying. And then I put it away. And sometimes I look back on it later and I think, what the hell does that mean? And sometimes I think, oh, that's cool. That's funny. Or that's some of the cartoons in the book. There's one in the book that's saying, it's like a guy looks like a young college professor maybe with a sweater vest and a beard, and he's saying, "Give a man a fish and he'll smell like fish. But teach a man to fish, and you won't have to be around to smell it."
Oh, definitely. Awesome. I love that. Wow.
And it's stuff like that. Just really silly little things. And so that kind of happened by accident. It really happened by accident, the poetry. And I like it. I really love it because I do, ironically, there's a poem in there. It's not dedicated to Shel on page in my head, called "In Brief," because Shel said to me one time, I gave him these two verses of a song, and I gave them to him, and he would sometimes he'd finish them. He'd do that to me, and sometimes I'd write a melody for his stuff. And he came back to me and said, "You said everything in these 8 lines. That's a songwriter's curse. You know that, Dennis. To be, And there's a poem in my book called "In Brief" that says, "A good friend told me that the songwriter's curse is the talent to say everything in just one verse." Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the whole poem, But Shel instills that, and I thought, what am I going to do with that? And I should have realized then, 20 years ago, that Shel was saying to me, "This is finished."
I think you just answered my question, because I was going to find out, can all songwriters naturally be poets, and what's the difference? I think. Well,
it all depends how much the words matter. Yeah. I mean, come on. You hear, we broaden genres. You know what I mean? Everybody in a gown is a diva.
Right.
Everybody with more than 4 or 5 people that are standing together on the stage, even if they're not doing anything, is a band. KFC is no longer fried because it doesn't say fried, it says F. We've changed things, but we haven't changed things.
Yes.
And now Song of the Year might go, "Oh, baby, oh, girl," for 2.5 minutes. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I really don't know but for me, as a singer, I'm very lucky to have those Shel songs in the beginning, because they gave me. It's why Shel came to me to do the play, because he realized, I guess, when he gave me a story song, that I could really tell that story. And so he thought, play's the same thing. And the play was a one-man thing. It was a 56-page poem that Shel wrote about a songwriter who goes to hell and trades his soul to be able to write songs, but he's so bad that it doesn't matter. And after Shel passed away, his family found some posthumous drawings and children's stuff, and they released a book called Runny Babbitt, which is actually Bunny Rabbit. It's all spoonerisms. Mm-hmm. And I read the audio book for Shel. Cool. And his family was sweet. They came back to me and they said, Shel would have read this if he was alive, but, we didn't know who to get, but he always came back to you, so we came back to you. Aww. And I thought that was a really nice endorsement, and I've read some stuff for animations on his website and stuff. So my relationship with Shel kind of goes on, in some nice ways. I don't try to milk it, but I don't. Hey, look, I'm not trying to milk anything I used to do. It should propel you forward in some respect, but you know, when people come to me after the show, because after the show I always go out and I sign some stuff and talk to people, and some people, and mostly people, are very, very nice. But people will come to me and say, you know what song you didn't do? And I'll say, well, yeah, like a lot of them. You know?
Seriously.
I mean, you know, or they'll say, how come you didn't sing? And I have to explain to them that I don't really have a reason why I didn't sing a song. I usually have reasons why I did.
Right.
Well,
and those 25 reasons preempt all the other ones.
I probably shouldn't.
You know?
I probably shouldn't be telling you, because I heard you sing one song on a TV show that is not your song, but I think you should put it out. That's Ring, you know, Ring, Ring, Telephone Ring. I love that song.
Yeah, no, that was a song, what was the name of the group? There was a group called, they were like a one-hit wonder band in the 70s, and we just recorded that. It was one of the last things we released, actually, and it was a single, but at that point, people had kind of cooled off on us. It was very, very weird being an international success. You know, now, with media, everybody can see your new single simultaneously. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we used to go, what? Sexy Eyes are hitting Sweden? And so we'd go over there, and I put on a little eye makeup, and we go on television, you know.
You know, I was listening to Sexy Eyes the other night. I was listening to Sexy Eyes the other night, and I swear to God, it sounded like Dr. Hook's kind of venture into disco.
Well, yes, man, it was the 70s, you know what I mean? We went bankrupt. We went bankrupt in 1975, 1976, after being a cult band that people really got into, but not so much. And, you know, and because our first two singles were Sylvia's Mother, where I was crying, and then the second one was Cover a Rolling Stone, where we were all laughing, people didn't even know, one, whether that was the same band or not, or two, if they did, how to take they thought Sylvia's Mother was the joke, and Cover a Rolling Stone was, they're really stoned, that must be true. You know? So nobody knew how the hell to take us. So we stayed a cult band for a few albums, and then went broke, because we were support act, we were trying to travel internationally, because Europe and other parts of the world got us as a concept, if there was one, long before the United States. Even now, in the United States, we are a series of hit records.
Right.
And we're three series of hit records. We're Cover a Rolling Stone and Sylvia's Mother. And then we went away for a while, but not really. We were in other countries. Mm-hmm. And then we were a little bit more, and If Not You. And then we went away because we were in other countries. And then we were Sharing the Night Together, Better Love Next Time, When You're Sexy Eyes, When You're in Love with a Beautiful Woman. And that was all 70s radio stuff, man. And we made a conscious effort. You know, we recorded that stuff with the Muscle Shoals guys that were all over the radio, because now it was big business. It was big, you know, we went from Dr. Hook and the Medicine Show to Dr. Hook Incorporated. And, you know, we didn't want to go broke again. At this point, we had families. So the music changed to, and, you know, I didn't really, in my heart, I don't like Sexy Eyes. I don't like it now. I didn't like it then. I mean, you know, from a guy saying things like the Ballad of Lucy Jordan to now be publicly singing, watching people get it on with each other. I'm sorry, and I know it's a great radio record, but it is not something in my sphere that I would have chosen to do. But when we were presented with it as a band, it sounded like a hit, and we needed hits to keep that international picture going and to stay on the radio. Right. And so I volunteered to spearhead. And you know the funny thing? We did a lot of those things. That Sharing the Night Together is okay. It's okay. I don't mind that song. It kind of says a nice thing. Better Love Next Time is a little hokey, but it was all right. Sexy Eyes I never liked. Beautiful Woman is actually a really cool song about a guy who's suspicious and wants to kill himself, only it has the Rock Your Baby beat, so everybody wants to kill themselves on the dance floor, you know. And it kind of, but there were a lot of those songs that I would not have chosen to sing, but I sang them for lack of a better phrase, the good of the band.
Right.
And now you can read a lot of things where people go, oh yeah, well, you know, they had all those hits, but they were those syrupy hits, and Locorriere really ruined the band.
You know,
and I think to myself, if we didn't have those strings of hits, we would have been that wacky group that was on the cover of Rolling Stone in 1972. End of story. So I didn't particularly want to sing those songs, but trust me, you roll the clock back, there was nobody, including me, that was complaining about having top 5 records all around the world.
And they weren't all syrupy either, because like one of my hosts, it's crazy how he interprets things, but he loves what you guys did back then, because he was like, oh yeah, they're singing about having sex with underage groupies, and they're talking about incest, and they're talking about necrophilia. He's a little weird, but did people
what song was that in? What song was it?
I don't know.
Freaker's Ball.
I guess he thought Freaker's Ball.
Well, see those things though, but see those things this is Shel's great. This was Shel's great talent, is that he could write a song like Sylvia's Mother and tear your heart out, and then he could write something like Freaking at the Freaker's Ball, which always made us think, well, if one guy could write both of those songs, why can one group of people not represent all those thoughts?
Definitely.
But if you listen to Freaker's Ball, if you listen to cover of Rolling Stone, it mentions we take all kind of pills. I got a freaky old lady named Cocaine Katie, Freaking at the Freaker's Ball, I'll kiss yours if you'll kiss mine, but we're obviously parodying. It's obviously a satire on the excesses of the time, Somebody said to me the other day, I think it was on the website, oh yeah, I don't know what you guys were taking back then. And my response was, everybody was partaking of some recreational stuff in the 60s and 70s, but let's just say Dr. Hook was stoned all the time, the way David Bowie was really from Mars.
Great answer. Wow.
No, but you know what I mean? It's like, and we knew the culture, and we were in the culture, but it's also like the drunk on the high wire. If we were that friggin' stoned, we wouldn't have lasted that long.
Right.
For
we wouldn't have got to all the international borders, first of all,
Wow.
I wanted to ask you about your tour, because one thing that's kind of interesting, and you don't see this a whole lot anymore, because, oh my God, you're actually a musician and not just, one of these prepackaged studio label record, phonies that they send out there.
There's no singer-songwriters.
It's just you and a guitar. That's it.
Yeah, I tour like that alone. If you went back to the old Dr. Hook shows, we used to do like 2.5 hours, and 20 minutes of that, 15 or 20 minutes of that was me alone. The band would, after about an hour and a half, leave the stage. It would go dark and come up, and it would just be me and the audience, and I would talk to them, and I'd sing some stuff. As a matter of fact, our big hit, Only 16, the Sam Cooke song, kind of generated from me one night. I just sang them that, and they liked it. Because I used to sit in my room before the show and think, well, what could I sing them tonight? And change it up for me so I wouldn't be on automatic pilot, And that's the lovely thing about playing alone, too, is if it starts to go into automatic pilot, I just play different songs, and I can change it right on the spot if somebody shouts something. But, there was a solo spot in the Hook set, and so I pretty much have made a career out of that 20 minutes, because I talked to them and I sang them lots of different things, and walk them through different things, and it's nice for me, because I don't really, like I said, once every 5-6 years I'll go out and do the Dennis, the voice of Dr. Hook, and do those songs and stuff. But as a steady diet, if that was all I could really do, I probably would pack it in, because there's something, I don't know, for me, there's something sad about trying to recapture the same 10 years of my life or 5 years of my life over and over and over, like some demented Groundhog Day, and like so there are those songs in this show, and it represents Hook very, very well. And like I said, I'll do album tracks that people will say, oh, I never thought I'd hear him sing that, and it has value. But I was going to say to you earlier, when people come to me after the show and say to me, well, I had a woman say, well, I didn't sing Sylvia's Mother. And I laughed and said, well, she's very old. Sometimes we have to let her lie down, And she said, well, you don't play that song. People are not going to, And I said, well, okay, but I did 2 hours up there. I hope it didn't ruin the show for you. And she said, well, it did.
Oh my God, really?
And see, the thing for me is when I go up there, I talk to them. I'm focused. I sing. I'm a physical guy. I don't sit on a stool, like Roger Whittaker and sing Kumbaya. There's a lot going on there. It's machine gun folk music.
Yeah.
And when I come off the stage, I'm courteous to people, and I like people, and people are generally nice to me. But when the first thing somebody says to me is gives me a list of the things I didn't do,
right?
Then I think, oh, okay, but I don't really know what to do with that, and I try to do the best show I can. I've even taken to at the end of it or during the encore if I get one.
Well, like you said, you don't always know what you're doing yourself. I even saw you on a UK talk show, and you were like, well, I'm going to sing this song. I don't know if I'm going to sing it tonight at the show, but I'm singing it now because, like you said, some of it's like autopilot.
Yeah, no, but man, the last thing you want to be doing is up there singing a dramatic song and then all of a sudden come to and realizing you were having a conversation with your wife in your head, I like to stay focused. I really do. I mean, that's why I like lyrical songs, because there's a story. You can't make mistakes in story songs, because then you ruin the whole thing. Okay? I mean, if you're singing the Ballad of Lucy Jordan, I mean, at the end of that, the third verse, she's up on the roof, and the people with the white coats have come to get her, okay? Now, if you accidentally sing that second verse that last verse second, it's like, good night! Thank you! She went from the kitchen to the roof. I mean, there's not, she's never even in the hallway, and you have to stay focused on stuff like that. And I like songs that, it's like when you're doing a play or something, and it's, people say, well, man, but how do you deliver it every night like it's, well, if you were doing a play, I mean, the 100th time you were doing the play, you wouldn't be reciting the lines monotone. I mean, you know what I mean? There is you get caught up in the individual stories, which is what I like about doing that. It's nice having a band. But it's hard to keep a band together. I like touring solo, and then when I tour solo, everybody gets jobs with other musicians, and then I'm starting over again.
Well,
every time I put a band together, I have to rehearse again.
Right. So when you're writing for your solo albums, such as like Out of the Dark and One of the Lucky Ones and Post Cool, how do you decide what you want to write about, what topics you want to hit on in your songs, or even what songs you're going to cover? Like, for example, your cover of Misty Blue, I thought was fabulous.
There's not a lot of calculation in it, because I'm not, like I said, when I was with Hook, we ended our career like, we were more like a guessing game at the end than anything organic. It was like, do you think this will be a hit? What do you think, this will be a hit? I mean, we stopped even talking about whether we liked the songs or not. It was just about, do you think this will be a hit?
Right.
And so when I do this for myself, I just kind of do things I think represent me. When I write songs, I'm not very prolific. I have songwriter friends in Nashville that write 300 and 400 songs a year, and a couple of them stick. I don't write like that. As a matter of fact, I haven't written a new song in a while now, in over a year. I've been mostly writing little poetry stuff and drawing stuff, and I don't have any whole ideas now, and so I don't sit down and go, "You finished? It's over," because all of a sudden I'll be writing. I know me. All of a sudden I'll be writing 5 songs. So on Post Cool, I'll give you Out of the Dark. My friend Rod Smar, who's a guitar player in Dr. Hook, who died last year, pancreatic cancer. I mean, Rod was a sweetie pie, and he was a really good mate of mine. And he used to say to me, "Oh, you got all these songs, man. We ought to record this stuff." And he used to say, "Rod, for what? I mean, why?" And he'd say, "Come on, let's just." So we went and we got some gear in his basement and we started recording the songs that eventually became Out of the Dark. And I said, "Oh, we need keyboards. Who's going to play these keyboards?" And I wound up playing most of the keyboards in Out of the Dark, and I didn't even play keyboards. I mean, we would do some guitar tracks, and while Rod was mixing and playing it, I would practice a little electric piano part, something simple that I'd want to hear. And we'd record it until I made a mistake, and then we'd stop and we'd pick up there. And we recorded those things never really with the full intention that anybody would hear it. And then we got a label here in the UK that wanted to put it out, and so we kind of sequenced it as an album. One of the lucky ones then, because we had the label and we knew somebody was at least waiting to hear something, was more fashioned like an album. But we had to work a little quicker. And then Post Cool, I did with my friend Pete Brown, who's a great musician and a great producer and songwriter. And he came to see the show, and he said, I love your first two albums, but they're really produced. I'd like to do an album that sounds more like I just heard you up there alone with just the band behind you. And so that's how we approached it. And a lot of Post Cool was cut as live, and quite a few of those vocals, or big chunks of those vocals, were what I sang while we played the tracks. Crashing Down, mostly that whole vocal was the vocal I did as we were recording the thing. And so it was a different feel, totally. But I shouldn't say this, but I really love those albums. Every once in a while I'll have occasion to hear bits of them, and I'm really proud. I don't go, why did I wear that? You know what I mean?
Right.
I like them, and so that's all I care about right now. I'm not a big legacy guy. I mean, I wrote a poem recently, that pretty much it's about legacies. You know what I mean? And pretty much what's going to happen is that after I'm gone, some people are going to have known me, and some people are going to figure out that, who I was by reading stuff, and there's not much I'm going to be able to do.
Well, the thing I've noticed...
Anymore, so it doesn't really matter.
I want to get a copy of your DVD because you've got a great live concert DVD. But I saw some of your YouTube video performances. You are so comfortable on that stage with the audience. It's almost like you become one.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why. I think it's because I don't really have to morph into someone else. We used to do gigs with Alice Cooper, and he'd be standing there chatting, and the band would be up there, and they'd hit that first chord, and he'd turn into Dracula right in front of your eyes, right in front of your eyes. And I don't really have to do that. I kind of can be talking to Adrian, my tour manager, and it's my cue, and I go out there, and I'm not, I did the Crop Ready Festival in August. I didn't tour a lot. I didn't work a lot last year. It was a weird thing. I've been living here in the UK for about the last 10 or 11 years, and on these special work permits. And these work permits that I had, I'll make this short too, were supposed to roll me over into permanent residency in 2011, but the new administration changed some of the rules, and some letters should have been written, and I would have been fine. But someone dropped the ball, and all of a sudden I was getting letters from the Home Office saying, you have 28 days to get out of here, or we'll find you and make you leave. And, and so I had to do a lot of stuff with the immigration attorneys and kind of get everything straight and stuff. Because before that, like I said, I was on these work permits. Everything's fine now, but the upshot of it all was, while this was going on, I couldn't really work.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go anywhere else to work because the British government had my passport. So I didn't work a lot last year. But one of the gigs I did do, I'm so glad, I love when I talk for 5 minutes and don't lose my point. I did the Crop Ready Festival, which is it's a lovely festival. It's got a great vibe. The band Fairport Convention do it every year. They've been doing it for years. And I had the slot right before their big show at the end, and they gave me an hour, and I walked out there, and, there was like 25,000 people, and I went out with a guitar, because I am billed as the stupidest man on the planet, and I went out there, and I hadn't been working. It was like, it was a stressful year, so it was like putting me in a bag and hanging me up and beating me with a stick for a little while, spinning me around and throwing me out on that stage. And that hour was great. I mean, it was really great. And I came off the stage thinking I shouldn't really worry about that aspect of my life. It's everything else. It's everything else. I feel more in control of what's going to happen next. and I'm very comfortable reading an audience, so that if I get a response, I'm not that good at guessing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I can't sit at home and figure out what I want to say to the audience. I'll try to make out a set list, an order that I think it should work in. And lots of times I'm right about that. But I'll go out and play it and think, yeah, I was right about that. But I pretty much figure out what I'm going to say during the first couple of shows. And then if it's good and it's structured, it becomes, as it's moving along, it becomes this, okay, that's the introduction to that. And it becomes a little more structure. But it's always born of absolute putting your butt on the line, walking out there and figuring, because you really don't know what you're going to play second until you play the first song.
Well, in knowing you were with Dr. Hook for 15 years, and then of course you're on your own now, and it's great, man. You've got so many dates. I can't believe you better. Maybe you should eat some of those brownies from the Grateful Dead. I don't know, to keep you motivated. But you
no. I tell you what, that's a short tour.
Really?
That's a short tour. We had, we booked that. That's like 34 shows. I usually do more than that, and I'm hoping to do more.
Wow.
In the rest of the year and stuff, pick up a little bit more. But it leveled me out so much last year. Doing that, the immigration thing and not being able to work, that I don't know if you've noticed, but the name of my tour this year is the Point Zero Tour. Because that's kind of where I am. I feel like I'm at point zero now, and I like that. I like being honest about it. You know what I mean? I really don't like the, I don't know. I don't really know why. My girlfriend says to me all the time, the only thing about this business that suits you is actually doing it. Because everything else is such, and as I've gotten, really, I don't want to sound too curmudgeonly now, but, game shows and talent shows and people, there's something I resent about pitting singers against each other.
Oh, yeah.
The talent shows, the dog act against the juggler, against the ventriloquist, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, it's a talent show. But pitting singers against each other, and now anyone it's like, oh, I hope Grandma dies right before the show because I don't have anything to say,
Yeah.
And it's weird because they've had to beat it into something now, but that's life. I mean, anything organic that happens organically that becomes a major success. Now we have to have 500 of them.
Well, too, you're part of a I won't say dying breed because you guys are still here, but you're like a Dylan in the fact that you're a singer-songwriter, and you don't see too much of that anymore.
Oh no, man! I'm a dinosaur. I am a dinosaur. And what am I going to do? I'm going to get one of those hairstyles. And maybe you have one. I don't know. But everybody now, no matter how old they are, they have these hairstyles that look like they just kind of messed it up and sprayed it. It makes me want to go, no, that hair should be over there. Just now I'm old, okay? But I don't see the point in just living in the past and trying to, make people believe that it's still 1970 something. I mean, it's like career Botox.
Yeah.
To freeze it there. And see, all that stuff, too. Some of the prettiest people in the world that would have aged wonderfully have decided at 40 that they're going to freeze it right there and literally have frozen it right there.
Yeah.
But what they don't understand is as they got older, it's going to slip underneath there.
Well, I
You're going to have really shiny, tight cheeks somewhere down on your shoulders.
Yeah, they look like a Barbie doll.
So
I don't get it. I don't get it. Why everybody? And it's because the media is in your face now. Remember what Andy Warhol said? Andy Warhol said everybody's going to want their 15 minutes of fame, and he wasn't really sure what he meant. Mm-hmm. Just like a lot of forward thinkers, like Jules Verne, accidentally invented the hot air balloon and the submarine, trying to be as outlandish as he possibly could, and 1984. No, it didn't really happen where we have cameras in the corner of our rooms and we wake up in the morning and say, good morning, big brother. But here in the UK, they can walk you home on CCTV.
Really?
On camera. So, I mean, it's you have to kind of roll with it. One of the reasons, the reason I called my album Post Cool I found a badge in Greenwich Village when I was a kid. Black badge, looks just like the cover of the Post Cool album. Black badge, big block white letters said Post Cool. And I always loved that. Because to me, right there, it symbolized beyond caring about what's cool. And I carried that around in my head forever. And when I was 60, putting out a new album, I thought, Post Cool. It's Post Cool.
I like that.
You know, not that I ever thought I was cool, but now I'm not the least bit worried about whether I am or not.
Right.
Because what am I going to do? Am I going to look at the charts and think, I don't know, I should write something that's somewhere between Beyonce and Maroon 5? I mean, you know, it's not for me. I don't want to go back into the guessing game. And since now I'm not the sharp end of a band, and I'm not thinking, oh, I don't want to sing Sexy Eyes, but it's for everybody's good, let's just do it, I don't have to make that consideration anymore. And because I don't want to be famous for something I didn't want to do. That's the worst feeling in the world, when people are coming up and congratulating you on something you wish you hadn't done.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
it really is.
I look at
and
it like
it's easy to do. Right. It's easy to do. You know, it's easier if you're a movie star. You know, because Robert De Niro, who's a great actor,
exactly.
Al Pacino, they can go and do their goofy family movies and whatever, and take that money and then go back and finance their Tribeca Productions and their smaller films. In the music business, if you go out there and say, I am the son of Satan, you're the son of Satan forever.
Right.
And if all of a sudden you got a cowboy hat on, they go, no, take that off. We can't see your horns anymore.
Right.
You know, you can't really. It's like Dwight Yoakam. Dwight Yoakam loves being an actor because he can be a serial killer, he can be a doctor, he could be anything. He can take off his hat and be really bald. But when he's Dwight Yoakam, he has to cock the hat and he has to have the whip in his knee.
Well, I imagine being a singer is a lot like being an actor, and I refer to this to actors all the time. When you're an actor, you can either be a celebrity or you can be an actor, because when you're an actor, you can do rich and deep work and not have to worry about commercial this and commercial that. You're being able to do what you want to do, and as long as you're happy, you deserve that, because you've done all the poppy commercial success stuff.
Yeah, but you know something? I'm just like everybody else. I get totally self-righteous, you know. I get totally self-righteous, you know, and I sit and I'll see things on TV, and I'll get as self-righteous as a person should not be allowed to get, and I'll think, why is that moron just had 5 minutes on television and I don't get it?
Yeah.
And then I think, because it's a different world, and most of the things they have to do to get those 5 minutes, I don't want to do. I don't want to go and eat a rat in the jungle. You know? Right. I really don't. And you know the funny thing about that? I have a really strong constitution. I eat sushi. I eat all sorts of disgusting stuff. If it was just about eating rats and ostrich intestines, I would win.
Yeah.
I would win. I don't want to be on a rope ladder, 90,000 feet in the air. I would die. You know, but I don't want to do any of that stuff. I don't want to be famous at all costs. I don't want to be seen just to be seen. But I never have. I didn't. It sounds like, when you get to a certain point in your life and you say things like, well, I was never really shooting for massive success. It sounds like you're saying that because you don't have it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times it's because you didn't go for it. I didn't really ever do this because I wanted to be Bruce Springsteen. I couldn't be Bruce Springsteen. I would not be able to have all the demands made on me that he has.
Exactly.
I would not, I don't want to lobby for the latest candidate and amnesty. I mean, I just don't, I wouldn't want to do it. So sometimes I get angry and I go, well, they don't even call me for those things that I probably would tell them no anyway. You know what I mean? I answer my own question. How come they're not asking me to eat a rat? And then if they ask me to eat a rat, I go, who the heck do you think you're talking to?
Right.
So I have to realize that I'm in my own, I don't even feel like I'm in the music business anymore. I feel like I'm in the Dennis Locorriere business.
Well, you are. That's a good place to be.
People come see me.
Yeah.
They know what they're going to get. If they think, I thought it was going to be more Dr. Hook songs, then they can wander away and they can wait until I do the greatest hits thing, if I ever do it again. I don't know.
So
I don't know how to guess.
I've got to ask you, Dennis, and a lot of people's prompted me to ask you, are you and Ray still friends?
We're not enemies, but I don't know. Ray is 14 years older than me, and and always had his own interests. I mean, Ray had successes and failures and a whole life before I even met him. He was 34. I was 20. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in the confines of Dr. Hook, it was our common bond. Mm-hmm. And we did press together, and we were friends in that, and we laughed a lot, and we got that done. But it's a little bit like being in the Army, you know, and you're down in the trenches and the bullets are flying over your head, and yeah, this guy's my best friend, we got each other's backs, and you swear that when the war is over, you'll have a barbecue. And to tell you the truth, when the war ends, everybody just goes home.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the way it always is.
And what happened later on was some contractual things and some things about the trademark name. My company owns it. Ray was using it. We needed to dot some I's and cross some T's and get some business straight. It became public, and, you know, you can still go on Dr. Hook websites, and people are talking right now about how Ray and I hate each other. I don't even know Ray anymore. I haven't seen him for 20 years. Right. We didn't have a lot of interest. When we were on the road with Dr. Hook, we'd be out there for months. We'd come off the road. He'd go back down south and go fishing, and I'd go back to New York and go to bookstores.
Right.
We're not the same people.
Yeah, he's a down-home boy.
It's probably what made Dr. Hook an interesting band.
Yeah.
Because none of us were the same kind of person. And on stage, there was a push and a pull, and it looked like an unlikely bunch of lads, and it worked for that reason. But, you know, so my answer would be that Ray and I are not exactly enemies. There are a lot of stirrers out there that would like to keep that going, mm-hmm. and you know. But then again, there are a lot of people mention to me about reunions. That's never going to happen. I mean, you know, my best friends in the band, my best, really to my heart, best friends that I would talk to. And after, you know, when we weren't on the road, John the drummer, mm-hmm. he's dead. Okay? Rod Smar, he's gone. Chance, our bass player, sweetheart, he's gone. Billy Francis, he's gone. So, you know, it would be a Beach Boys reunion. It would be, you know, a bunch of new musicians propping a couple of guys up so that they could look at you. And it's not really anything I care to do. You know, there are a couple of very old band members that quit early on, telling us to take a hike and split, and they'd all like to do a reunion, I'm sure, because now they're all in their 70s and wondering what they did with their lives. But I have no intention of helping them find closure, you know, because they left. I mean, right. You know, when it got tough, they left. And Rick Ellsworth, who's the guitar player in the band, Rick and I are still friends. He lives in San Francisco. We stay in touch. Rick and I are the only members living today that were on that stage for the farewell tour. Mm. So, you know, it would be ludicrous. It really would be ludicrous to do a reunion tour. You know, it really would. And even if I got totally nostalgic and thought, yeah, let's do it, about 2 days into rehearsals, we'd all be thinking, what the hell did we do? and when I say we all, there would be, because there are a couple of guys that left very early on that I don't think I would want to work with, but I mean, there's not a lot of us left. Right. There really aren't a lot of us left. And, you know, and when people say, oh, you should get back together, put your differences behind you, you think, well, you know, that's like inviting me to a dinner party, but only if I bring my ex-wife.
Exactly.
You know? People don't realize that. Fans get all like, oh, well, you know, put it behind you, but they don't understand that you guys are people. That's like saying, you know, find somebody that you had a falling out with and just make up with them for no reason.
You don't even have to have a falling out. It's like, you know, I joined that band when I was 19. I'm going to be 64. Things change, right. Even if you don't want them to. You know, that's the stupid thing about it, is when they change, everybody freaks out. Do the opposite. Try to make them not change.
Right.
You can't. You can't make them not change.
Well,
you know, it is ludicrous. It would really be ludicrous. And like I said, it's like inviting me to a party and saying, but do me a favor, bring your ex-wife. And then I say, well, we don't really speak. Yeah, but you look so cute together. I remember those pictures. You look so cute together. You know, and you don't want to do it. You really don't want to do it. And in a lot of cases, it doesn't work. Besides, you know, you get together and it's sad, and I don't get it. You know, I get emails all week from people, oh, on YouTube, I hear the weirdest things. I was watching you on YouTube. I didn't realize you sang all those songs. And I think to myself, well, after all these years, sorry, I guess you missed the point.
Right.
What am I going to do? Am I going to go out and try to prove that YouTube is out there? Go ahead and watch them. That's fine.
Now,
I'll
see,
have bell bottoms on, a little eyeliner. It's great. It's fine.
You're way too polite, Dennis, because I used to have this one radio show on Elvis Presley, in fact, and there was this one fan, and she would want me to play the same record every week, and I got mad. I was like, buy the damn record and play it in your house, and, it's hard to please everybody.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, but people are coming from a different place than you are. It's like when people want your autograph, and they might want it in the most unlikely, inconvenient place. But then, if you stop to realize that, you in your mind you're going, this could happen at another time, and in their mind they're saying this will never happen again.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you really do need to consider that. And I'm always. It's funny because I'm not a big people. I like people. I'm courteous. I can express myself. I'm good in a crowd. But I don't choose to be with people. I don't have a lot of friends. My best friend is a fellow I grew up with named Rob McCluskey. He lives in San Francisco as well. I never see the guy once every 5-6 years. I saw him both turn 60 a few years ago. I went there to see him. He's my dearest friend. When I talk to him, we don't talk about the past, but when I talk to him, I can feel in my heart it's still him, so it must still be me.
Right.
And I love the guy, and he's my friend, but I don't have a lot of friends. That's why I could never be on Facebook. I don't need a lot of friends. I really don't. I'm not the kind of guy that goes down the pub because I have to hear voices. As a matter, I'm really not, and I never have been. And that's kind of one of the ironies of my life is that I try to explain to people that I'm sociable, which means if you invite me to your party and I come, I won't sit in the corner and brood. Right. People will be glad I'm there.
Right.
But I'm not particularly social,
right.
Which means I don't choose to go, in a day when I'm not working. I walk into town, I buy a newspaper, I say hello to the woman across the counter, I go to a little place, I say, could I get a cup of tea in a to-go cup, please? And I come home. And at night I go where my girlfriend lives and we watch TV for a couple hours, but she has a real life and a job, and so she goes to bed, and I come back to my flat and I stay up all night like Bela Lugosi. And I don't, I really don't have a lot, I'm not a very social person, but I'm good with people.
Well, you must have...
but then my job is like crowd control with music,
for sure. You must have a great girlfriend because she doesn't mind that you're doing a show on Valentine's Day instead of being with her.
Oh, I know. How about that? Yeah, you're right. I'm sitting around for how long, not working? You know what I mean? And it's like, guess what, honey? She gets me better than I do, and she likes me better than I do, which is nice, It
is.
Because, what are you going to do? I mean, really, what are you going to do with your life except just, it's funny, they always say, that great expression about an unexamined life is not worth living. Mm-hmm. I was reading this great book called Hope, a Tragedy. It's a really funny book, and this guy says, yeah, but except in a lot of ways, and the unexamined, an examined life usually leads to hanging yourself in the shower. And it's true, and I think a lot. You know what I mean? I think a lot, but I think it has to make sense. It has to make sense. And, I'm not a spiritual person. I'm not particularly a spiritual person. I don't really think things happen for a reason. I think we give them reason or we would explode. Mm-hmm. I think it's 12 random songs and we put them in some kind of order and make a musical.
Right.
That's what I really believe. And, and even though I think things do not happen for a reason, to my very core, I'm still disappointed when they don't go my way.
Right.
You know what I mean? I still feel like the whole world is conspired. I mean, I'm a very logical guy, and as my friend McCluskey once said to me, it must be a painful world for a guy as logical as you. It's probably true.
Well, you have not disappointed me, Dennis. I thought this was a great interview, and you can tell you're a singer-songwriter. You're a very deep guy and a very smart guy, and I thought you did a great. It was worth 6 months trying to get you on the air. It really was.
Thank you. And because I'm originally from New York and I talk fast, we did like a good 6-month interview here.
We did.
Absolutely, yeah, no lie. And we encourage everybody to go to your website.
So go ahead and tell everybody. I know it's the date's actually coming up. Actually, I'll let you guys know because we had read some of them.
The website is just DennisLocorriere.com, and there's more on there than you could ever want to know about me.
Yeah, including the dates that I mentioned before you came on. I just want to remind all of our listeners that are over in the UK that the next upcoming dates is February 14th at the Customs House in South Shields, February 16th at the Waterfront Hall in Belfast, and February 23rd at the Playhouse Theatre in Weston-super-Mare. So.
Yeah, and I told my UK friends here that they can listen to this because I don't think, they like me, but I really don't think they're up right now hanging on my every word.
I doubt it.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I really don't. So if there's a way they can listen to it later, that'd be nice.
Absolutely.
And, hey, listen, I found this poem on my blog about something I was saying to you earlier, and if I could just read it to you, it might be an okay,
Sure.
an okay way to, then you can tell me to piss off.
No, because I don't speak British.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
This is going to be in English, so I don't know if you'll get it.
Okay.
The poem is called Legacy, and it says, I've been asked how I'd like to be remembered, but I don't believe that choice is up to me. It's bound to be a legacy encumbered by years of Chinese whispering and twisted history. The people I keep close will share the knowledge of who I really was and what is true, and the rest may hear about me from someone that read about me written by someone who didn't have a clue.
Very good.
That was wonderful.
And that's pretty much what it is. And how would you like to be remembered? I'm not going to know if you do or not, quite honestly. That's the thing about passing away. That's the thing about those minutes. The reason it's so painful for all of us is because we actually think about the minute after we die. Yeah. And there isn't one.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? We go, is it going to hurt? Am I going to be floating around? And we add the extra minute. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'll actually get buried because it takes up too much space. But but if I did have a headstone, you're going to think this is very pessimistic. But if I did have a headstone, and as a matter of fact, in the back of my book, the last cartoon is a picture of this headstone, since I figured maybe that might be the only one I have. It says, life, I can't recommend it.
Yeah, Curly of the Three Stooges said he didn't care for death because there's no future in it. So it's almost the same, yeah.
No kidding, yes. And there's another cartoon in my book that says the best thing about dying is you don't have to live with it for the rest of your life.
Well, you're a cool guy, and
hey, thanks, folks. This is really cool, and I'm glad you stayed on me. But last year, when you asked me to do this on one of the weekends, it was like I had 12 shows, and that was it. I booked them before they told me to stop working. They let me honor them, and I was doing them on the weekends that you wanted to talk to me. So
yeah.
I'm glad you stayed on top of me, and I hope I didn't seem harsh when I went, what are we going to talk about?
No, I thought it
like, as soon as people tell me I was a cute baby, it doesn't mean I want to tour in diapers.
Well, I want everybody to know that Dennis is not a conceited person. He's a down-to-earth person because he was going on and on in an email wondering if anybody remembered him in the United States, wondering if you still had fans in the United States, and yes, you do.
Something, the gigs I get offered in America and in Canada are casinos and nightclubs where I would sing Sexy Eyes and they would eat prime rib. And you want to know something? I would rather shoot myself as an entertainment, except there'd only be one show. You know what I'm saying? That's what I get offered.
Right.
You come, you sing the old songs, and we'll eat. And it's like, you can play the records and have a pizza, pal. It's not what I'm here for. And that's not my ego. It's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to run the projector on everybody's old home movies.
Right. Right.
Wow. Well, happy Sunday morning to you, Dennis.
Yeah, now you've woken me up, and now I have to try to find something to watch. I am. I swear to God. This is how crazy I am, because I'm a vampire and also a day person. But I'm looking around here at my DVD. Oh, you'd never want to come to my flat. It's like I'm like a crazy person. I have corridors of DVDs and books that you have to walk through. I won't even let anybody in here because I'm sure they'd make me go back to the States. But I'm looking around here, seeing what I Doug Stanhope's last concert. I'm just looking for things I can. The Honeymooners. Maybe I can watch the Honeymooners. Lately, I watch nothing but black and white stuff. I don't even need a color TV. Everything I watch is, I Love Lucy and the Honeymooners and Bilko and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to see. This is a guy telling you I don't want to recapture anybody's past, and that's all I'm doing. But let me tell you something. I'm not writing a letter to Phil Silvers going, I know you're 90. Come on, do Bilko. Dig Jackie Gleason up. I want to hear him say, one of these days, Alice, bang, zoom, right in the kisser.
Have you ever heard of an old British actor, because you're over there in the UK, called Old Mother Riley?
No.
Oh, man, I've got to send you a DVD, I swear to God, because it's a guy, okay, back in the day...
What's from Music Hall days?
What they did, they called Music Hall. It was like vaudeville, and he was an old British comedian. It was a guy, and he would dress up like this old woman, and
the Brits loved that. The Brits loved dressing up as women.
And he did this movie with Bela Lugosi. It's awesome. I have to send it to you.
Okay, cool. You know why the Brits, Monty Python, the Brits have always had this history, dressing up like women.
Yeah.
And it really stems back to the Shakespearean days when all actors were men, and even men played the female parts.
Oh, that's fine.
So they've been comfortable doing that. It was never like, oh, he's wearing a dress, what's wrong with him? That was, all women, it was a profession that was a little bit too out there for women to be in, so men would play the women's parts.
Right.
And it's just a tradition, and in America, you put on a dress and, it's like, you'll be on Fox News any minute,
Or you could be in a rock band and put on an eye patch and people think you're Dr. Hook when you're not, because they get confused.
There's all sorts of, popular misconception. The phrase popular misconception? Mm-hmm. It's both those things. It's something that's not true that a lot of people think is.
Right.
You know what I mean? But when they say but that's just a popular misconception. Oh, okay, good. Well, if you look like Paul McCartney, you can't charge everything to his credit card. You know what I mean? So, anyway, thank you, folks.
I
appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
God
Dennis.
knows who listens to this.
Right.
Yeah, and this...
if you get any good feedback, or if anybody calls you and says, I don't know how long you've had this show, but you don't have it anymore, let me know.
No, we'll have it for sure. Tomorrow it should be up available in the on-demand, so all your UK fans can hear it.
Hey, and if there's a way that I can stick it on my website after that, or something, let me know.
Absolutely. We'll send you the file, and I can also send you a CD of it, too.
Oh, cool. Well, great. Yeah. The last thing I would do is listen to it. But because I said to you earlier, if you ever want to stop me from doing something, let me see me doing it. That'll be the end of that.
All right. Well, Dennis, we want to thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight / this morning, and we hope you have a wonderful Sunday.
Thank you. Yeah, and hey, we're well into it over here.
Okay.
All right.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.